Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the DC Animated Universe retrospective, and it's hard to think we've gotten to this point. We're now on the final season of Batman the Animated Series, the 4th volume, aka The New Batman Adventures, or the abbreviation TNBA. You might be wondering why there's a 4th season, and yet I decided to give a speech from the heart on my thoughts on BTAS as a whole in the last video. Well, that's because when it comes to both production and reception, this season is a bit of an outlier. There are several reasons as to why this is, we can get into as time goes on, but the reason I gave that speech then was because that was the end of the BTAS era as we knew it, where BTAS was the only show in the DCAU and we only got light references to other DC Comics characters. This is a bit of a tangent, but bear with me. From my perspective, the DCAU can easily be split in terms of air dates into 3 eras. The BTAS era, which consists of BTAS, Phantasm, and Sub-Zero. TNBA is very much a part of what I'm dubbing the World's Finest and Beyond era, consisting of TNBA, STAS, and Batman Beyond. All released in the late 90s and ended in the very early 2000s, with the final era being the World's Greatest era, consisting of Zeta, Static Shock, and of course Justice League/Justice League Unlimited. Point being that by the time TNBA rolled around, the DCAU had changed. It's not just Batman and some other DC characters, we have a universe on our hands. This serves as a smooth segue into the history lesson. As was established previously, BTAS came off the air on Fox in the year 1995. It was of course a huge success from start to finish, but 1 year later, WB commissioned the same team to work on a Superman show. Not for Fox this time, but instead their own network, the WB. With BTAS already over, this gave the team a chance to start fresh, not just in the kinds of stories they were telling, but the most notable change came: the animation. Bruce Timm has a very unique art style. No matter what, you can tell when his designs are being used. But that isn't the change I'm referring to. STAS had simplified the designs of BTAS, which had a very detailed approach that was in no way cheap. I'm guessing this is why so many episodes had noticeable mistakes. The features of the characters were less rounded, and in general the lines of the cartoons were simpler and more visible. As a whole, STAS just looked a bit more cartoony than BTAS did. STAS started in 1996 with appearances from other DC characters and references to Batman himself, so it was very plausible that this version of the Man of Steel existed in the same universe as the Dark Knight we'd grown to know and love back in BTAS. I know this sounds like a massive STAS history lesson when the subject of today's video is TNBA, but the reason for that is that TNBA's history is very much tied to that of STAS, which is tied to the end of BTAS v3. I wanted to keep this retrospective smooth, hence why we've done and will continue covering all BTAS content before moving on to STAS and then JL and so on. To relate the history lesson back to TNBA though, in 1997, the decision was made to bring back BTAS for the WB and it would cross over with STAS, but for consistency's sake, and for money's sake, the same streamlining process done to STAS would need to be applied to BTAS as well, thus giving us the TNBA that we now know today. But they didn't just take what was done already and give it an STAS makeover. For TNBA, they took this chance to radically alter the designs of the characters, and that's a decision that's still met with controversy to this day. Because, you know, different and therefore ruined, right? Watch any video about TNBA specifically, and I guarantee you that a lot of time will be spent on the character designs and how good, meh, or bad they are. I'm just going to talk about the different character designs right now at the very beginning of this review, because let me tell you, I really don't care about that at all. Like I said, in regards to STAS, Bruce Timm has a very unique art style, so it doesn't look so radically different as to not be worthwhile or not good. But to be fair, let's look at some of these designs. Batman himself has swapped costumes. Instead of a bright bat emblem with blue on the inside of the cape, we now have a giant black bat emblem and gray on the inside of the cape, with the belt going from one solid piece to individual pockets. It's kind of like his first costume that we saw in Phantasm, Robin's Reckoning, and The Mechanic. However, that leads to the interesting question, is this suit canon? Like I just said, we know that Batman went from this suit to the BTAS one. The Justice League costume is also a variant of the TNBA suit, and we most certainly have no idea if that's canon or not. Take the episode Mad Love, for example. We get flashbacks that had to have taken place before BTAS started, but we have the TNBA designs. Probably is not to confuse the kids or something, but does that mean the flashback is just intentionally not accurate, or is the suit not canon? But just you wait, we will see just how unreliable a Batsuit is in regards to determining timeline placement. That brings me to the next point. Batman may have gotten a costume change, however many of the villains have gotten complete physical makeovers. The Penguin in BTAS was meant to resemble Danny DeVito's portrayal of the character in Batman Returns, but the film series was done by this point, so now he just looks like a normal person. The Mad Hatter's a lot shorter than he was in BTAS, Poison Ivy has white skin, which you could probably make a pretty sad theory about considering the end of House and Garden, but the video is still young, so I'll put a pin in that for now. In general, the female villains look a lot younger. In BTAS, Catwoman and Ivy had looked like fully mature women, maybe in their 30s like Batman, but they look around 19 to 24 here. Okay. I prefer it the old way, but I'm not losing sleep over this. Killer Croc has changed skin tones, Bane has a new mask, Freeze has a new suit color. See where I'm going with this? I have absolutely nothing to say about any of this because frankly I really don't care. So much distaste in the offset for this season has come entirely because of this animation shift. Hello, aren't we telling stories here? It's not like we went from Mask of the Phantasm to Newgrounds animation. It is fine. But most of the hatred has gone to the Joker. People all across the internet have thrown their complaints in the face of this design, and I really don't know what to tell you. He looks like the Joker to me. I prefer the red lips and the yellow eyes from BTAS, but I don't know, this is perfectly tolerable for me. It's still Mark Hamill voicing him, and the same amazing writers writing for him with by far my favorite Joker episodes yet, so I'm not talking about this design any further. It's been done to death. I'll be honest with telling you that the only redesign I don't like, let alone hate, is the Riddler, which, oh my, he looks terrible. Looks like Jim Carrey's version in Batman Forever. Just a really bad design for someone who looked great back in BTAS. But luckily, the Riddler has no episodes dedicated to him this season, so we really don't have to talk about him that much. On the whole though, this is a hot take, but I vastly prefer the look of TNBA and STAS to BTAS. I know I just said that. But I'm not doing it from a position of being a contrarian. I'm saying this since I firmly believe this to be the truth. I think BTAS has a better art style, and by that I mean the look of the show on character design sheets and all that. Hence why Mask of the Phantasm has had the best animation yet. But we're talking about the shows here, and the final product I might add. BTAS had a lot of problems in the animation department. Issues that were sorted out as they went along, but issues nonetheless. Areas of the simplified art style didn't need to worry about as much. For one, the action in TNBA is far better than anything in BTAS. Season 3 of BTAS really stepped up to the plate in this category, but still, that had nothing on how fast-paced and snappy the action sequences are in TNBA. What better way to cap off a great episode than with a great action scene as Batman rips goons apart and gets in that oh-so-satisfying punch of the villain at the end. But I can highlight those as we go. Basically, take what I said about the action in the last video and multiply that by 10 and you have TNBA. But more importantly, my biggest reason for saying TNBA and STAS look better than BTAS can be summed up in one word. Consistency. I really don't take too many points off from BTAS for this, but damn is it noticeable how inconsistent BTAS looks. Sure, each episode was done by a different company than the last, but still, no excuse for why Batman's bat emblem would be huge, nothing to fear, but be really tiny in I Am the Night. Or how Bruce's face will look like this in Shadow of the Bat, and most episodes, but then there's I Am the Night, which just sticks out. Or look at Moon of the Wolf. In one shot, Dr. Milo's jacket will be one color, another in the next, and another in the shot after that. Things like that are laughably amateur and it negatively affects the presentation of the show. TNBA and STAS are simpler, yes, but it means that the companies working on these episodes had an easier time staying close to the sheets while working with the deadlines. In addition to that, it just makes a more enjoyable watch for me when everything will look the same and be consistent between episodes. I am not saying there are no mistakes. This is the DCAU, of course there are animation mistakes, but between episodes the Batsuit won't have massive incongruities or Bruce changing facial shape ever so slightly. Also, the insanity that the number of times he goes in between having white eyes or skin-colored eyes has also been remedied since all of Bruce Wayne's appearances in TNBA, STAS, JL, and Batman Beyond are all colored. So yeah, I could go on, but like I said, the animation topic really isn't my specialty, and I believe I've gotten my point across. The animation this season is great, and the character designs are really not that big of a deal. Calm down. From this point forward, I'll highlight good action scenes, but beyond that, this is about characters and storylines, and there's a lot of ground to cover amongst these 24 episodes, which might not be as many as the last 3 seasons, but like I said, there's a lot to say. Before getting started, it's important to mention that when going into this season, I remember it clearly being my least favorite season of the show, much like everyone else. I praised the ever-living daylights out of Season 3 as being the best of the show, so upon this revisit, will TNBA claim the title for the best season of BTAS? Let us find out by starting with none other than the very first episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Holiday Nights. So, I don't mean to endlessly repeat myself, but I believe that the first episode of these seasons should be a trendsetter, if it needs one. On Leather Wings being our introduction to the show's format, Eternal Youth told us to expect more of the same thing as Season 1 with a higher budget, Shadow of the Bat sets up Season 3 as having more story, So how about Holiday Nights? Well, are any of you familiar with the Brave and the Bold comics from way back when? Or hell, Batman the Brave and the Bold from the late 2000s? The idea was to see team-ups of all different kinds from different heroes each time. This season does something very similar. We can of course get into this as the video goes along, since the start of this season does indeed have quite a bit of mystery when going into it. Since Robin is now years younger, Batgirl seems to be a full-time member as opposed to the occasional assistance that she offered before, with this mysterious Nightwing character being here as well. Like I said, there's plenty of time for that later. Point is, this season will give us various mix-ups between these four characters. It could be just Batman, or Batman and Robin, Batman and Batgirl, Batman, Robin and Batgirl, Batman and Nightwing, and so on. Holiday Nights focuses on 3 different storylines, one after another that are all about different things and characters, all with the holiday theme in the background. Oh, and just a side note, the title cards from BTAS are now gone, and in their place we have text that says the episode's name. I'm fine with either, to be honest, so as I was saying. The first plot is a scheme by Harley and Ivy to have a fun holiday shopping spree. To make this plan work, they need Bruce Wayne, and he's at yet another one of Veronica Vreeland's parties. At this rate, she must have one of these like every other day. And she also switched her hair color back to red since it was blonde in Sub-Zero. Just in case you forgot. I know I already did. These 3 plots are simple, so let's get into it. Ivy uses her manipulative stuff to make Bruce Wayne take them on a shopping spree using his credit card. The resulting montage being quite entertaining with Bruce signing his name, although his resilience is quite impressive. As we all know, Bruce is no normal man, as shown by the fact that the driver that they got is a complete vegetable thanks to Ivy, but Bruce is strong enough to be conscious of the fact that he's doing something against his will.
Oh my god! We killed him!
Oh well, we were going to do it anyway.
We got his credit cards, what's to worry?
With Bruce now assumed dead, it's time for the Batman to take over, which isn't as easy as it may seem. Get used to this, but Batman takes quite the beating this season with the scenes I'll talk about as we go. But I'll say now, I like that fact. Makes the victory at the end feel more grand. We also get introduced to the new tech that Bruce is using. Like the new Batmobile, for example, that's a much sleeker design. Or the new grappling hook, which also has a much sleeker design, and with much less noise when being fired in comparison to BTAS. Batman pulls the Christmas tree down and it lands on Harley and Ivy, thus ending the first of the 3 stories.
Well, here's your stupid tree. You happy?
Yeah.
The next one opens up a few days later, with Barbara Gordon shopping for a gift for her father, with Harvey Bullock as the mall Santa. Oh my goodness, I'm already in love.
You know, you could be a little more jolly, St. Nick.
Give me a break, Montoya. This is the lamest stakeout I've ever been on.
Bullock and Montoya are on lookout for a mystery group of shoplifters, and these kids become one to reveal Clayface. If you remember, Clayface had died in the water back in Mudslide from Season 2, and now he's back. Well, this contributes to the mystery of Season 4, like I said. We'll learn more about this in a few episodes. Short story short, Barbara changes into Batgirl and attacks Clayface with her getting the people out as she gives Bullock and Montoya an edge in the battle, thus ending the second story.
Not so fast, Santa. We still have to recover the evidence.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Roll up those sleeves.
Ho, ho, ho.
Anyway, the third, final, and best story of the bunch takes place on New Year's Eve.
Snapped. Altieri fades back, looking for an opening.
Hi-ho, couch potatoes. I'm interrupting the toilet bowl to bring you my very special New Year's resolution. Starting tonight at midnight, I, your loving Uncle Joker, do solemnly vow not to kill anyone for a whole year. Which means I'm going to have to work extra fast to bump off a few more of you today.
Hysterical.
This is our introduction to the new Robin, whom, like I said before, is much younger, and you can see that in his fighting style. Since he can't just punch guys directly, he has to be a bit more defensive and use his size to his advantage, which is a subtle detail that I like. How about that Joker TV appearance, though? There are a few interesting things to note. One, I'm keeping track of all the times that he invades the airwaves, so add Holiday Nights to the list. And two, the TV is in color. which again shows the passage of time, since in the last 3 seasons, every time a TV was involved, it was always black and white. 3. It was very noteworthy how the Joker just vows not to kill anyone for the year. This will be a factor for the remainder of the retrospective, but once again, we are not on Fox anymore, this is Kids WB. The censors have different standards, and so the writers are able to do a lot more. In BTAS, we rarely ever saw blood, and the only example I can think of being On Leather Wings, the very first episode, and we especially never saw people actually being hit by the bullets that were flying. Here we will see those elements far more often, as well as some shocking moments during STAS, Justice League, and Batman Beyond. This trend starts right now with this scene. I was really surprised when I saw the Joker just nonchalantly pull out a handgun and shoot Batman with it. And our story comes to a close with the Joker having the bell from New Year's come crashing down upon him, ending the story with a great scene as Batman and Gordon share a cup of New Year's coffee with Batman footing the bill as usual. So that was Holiday Nights, and I must say, my mind was certainly not blown by this episode since all 3 of these plots are really basic, but the animation, character interactions, and variety makes it stand out as my favorite intro BTAS episode of all time. This is an episode based on the issue of the Batman Adventures, which I haven't mentioned yet, come to think of it. If you don't know, those are the tie-in comics for the DCAU shows, a lot of which is canon, some isn't, and some were adapted into episodes this season. An example being Holiday Nights, like I just said, but the other, perhaps more famous example being Mad Love. The iconic episode we'll most certainly be discussing later down the line. The Watchtower Database has a full trivia video about the issue this episode is based on and what was changed, so go watch that. Without further ado, we still don't know who this new Robin is and where he came from, so let us move right along to the answer that is revealed in episode 2, Sins of the Father. The episode opens with a kid named Tim Drake on the run from a cop he just stole the donuts from as he makes a getaway, showing his existing agility and ability to think on the fly. He makes use of a batarang to get away from the cop, which is interesting. Again, the mystery is finding out who this kid is and why he became Robin. It's hard to say that this is an origin story right off the bat since he is seen using a batarang. After the fact, we can tell he probably just found this somewhere, but it's interesting nonetheless. Following that, we get a look at Drake's household, which is a complete pigsty. These goons are looking for Drake's father, but he isn't around, a setup all too familiar to this version of Batman. This results in a quick chase scene between the goons and Tim, where we learn that the goons work for Two-Face. Evidently, Drake's father stole something crucial from Two-Face while working for him and has since skipped town altogether, leaving Tim behind.
He stole something from me.
Your charming good looks?
This doesn't stop Two-Face from getting what he wants, though. I like the fearless attitude of Tim Drake here. It makes him a character you can easily root for. Thankfully, Batman arrives to stop this with a pretty good fight scene as Batman takes yet another hard hit. Batman has no choice but to bring the kid back to the Batcave with him, where unfortunately Tim makes his way upstairs where he finds out that Bruce Wayne is Batman as Batgirl arrives to stop him. Now, thanks to the note that Tim's father left behind, Batman and Batgirl know that Two-Face needs some chemicals from the airport, and that's where they go next. The brief action scene as Batman is clearly weaker than usual thanks to the injury from earlier. Once again, this is what I love in this version of Batman. Weaker versions show him getting beat for contrived reasons, but here he might get hurt from a large hit or maybe his own poor judgment and so on. I don't know why, but I've always gotten the biggest kick out of seeing Two-Face just quickly and effortlessly sending this worker from the car down to the ground in one hit. Two-Face gets away with the chemicals as he makes a threat to the city to give him money or else he'll kill everyone with the chemicals. Although, at this point, just how easy is it to take over the airwaves in Gotham? Eventually we'll be told just how they get airspace, but still, I wonder how much these notorious supervillains have to pay for airtime. Batman and Batgirl discover who Drake's father was, and I just had to laugh out loud when I saw the picture of his father as a kid. That is literally Tim Drake right now with bags under his eyes. I mean, hey, if they were Ghostbot, they'd just give him a mustache and a top hat, but that's neither here nor there. Despite that, this is a pretty sad scene as they find out that Drake's father has moved to another city with a different name.
That means he's not coming back. My old man. He's gone for good. That's what a John Doe means, right?
Well, we can't be absolutely...
Yes.
He was never gonna come back for me anyway.
Oh, also, if it didn't stand out to you, I'll highlight it. When Tim gets upset about his father being gone for good, Batgirl tries to console him, but Batman just unemotionally drops the hard truth. This will become a core part of my analysis towards Batman's personality, but for right now, look at Bruce's reaction to Dick and Robin's reckoning and you'll see the difference.
Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes. But it will get better in time. For you. That I promise.
Something has changed here, and that is another mystery to be resolved as we go deeper into the season. The episode is almost done, but we do have a brief action scene as Batman and Batgirl try to disrupt Two-Face's plans, and it's at this time that Tim has had enough sitting around and dons Dick Grayson's original Robin suit from when he was a kid and becomes the new Robin. With this being Tim Drake's official introduction as Robin into this season, and he is very different from the Robin we've seen in previous seasons. Dick Grayson was in college by the time of BTAS, so he was far more experienced and knowledgeable. As a result, he could question Batman with more ease since he had greater understanding of the world around him. However, Drake is just a kid, so he's going to have to grow his skills throughout the season, but he does it all with such enthusiasm that you root for him all the way.
Oops.
Ending the episode with Tim being officially trained by Bruce with a surprise visitor at the end.
I make the rules.
Watch out for that last one, kid. It's a killer.
Dick.
My word.
Hey, no one can be a boy wonder forever.
And I must say, that was a fantastic episode! Not only does it do a good job filling in the blanks in regards to Tim's backstory, but it also is an interesting story that kept me engaged throughout the whole thing. Good action scenes, and it sets Tim Drake up as a relatable character. It also deserves points since we already got a Robin origin story episode for Dick Grayson back in the above-mentioned Robin's Reckoning. While comparing these two episodes, I showed a change in Bruce's personality, with another great example of that being the training scene. Bruce was having actual fun with it back in the day.
See? It's finesse, not strength.
Finesse, huh?
Hey! Okay, now you're gonna get it.
Whoa!
Too slow, huh?
But here, he was pretty cold throughout.
You work with me, Tim. You follow the rules. Rule number 1, you give me everything you've got. Rule number 2, then you give me more. And rule number 3, I make the rules.
We saw how Dick was brought up from a good family, which had an effect on his personality, and thus making us buy his heroic attitude. Tim Drake had a pretty rotten life before meeting Batman, and thus it's thanks to Batman that his life is put on track. Since we saw Tim steal a box of donuts from the cop, that also contrasts with Dick, since like I said, he had good values which made him want to help people both in and out of the costume. Whereas Tim Drake is more in it for the adventure. Having said that, that covers Sins of the Father. A great episode that sets a high bar for the season. So, moving right along to Cold Comfort. I have made jokes about it before, but this episode, as the title may have suggested, is a follow-up to Sub-Zero, the movie that I covered last time, and this is the fourth part of the Freeze saga, with only one part remaining that we'll get into way later down the line. Freeze had a pretty conclusive ending in Sub-Zero, so I'm pretty interested in seeing where they take it here. Beginning with a TV interview with this leading scientist, which marks the debut of the reporter, Jack Ryder. Every series has at least one reporter that frequently appears, like Summer Gleason in BTAS, and of course Lois Lane in STAS. Jack Ryder filling the role for TNBA, but be sure to keep him in mind for his spotlight appearance in episode 23. After busting in, Freeze wrecks this woman's dinosaur, followed by a scene between Bruce and Gordon that must be discussed. In previous videos, I mentioned that Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman's performance, had changed this season. I don't really know how to describe it, but in TNBA and onwards, he just sounds normal, like he isn't putting on a voice. Whereas he definitely did as Bruce in BTAS, with Wayne sounding really goofy and out of touch when interacting with friends and such. This created a believable distinction between Bruce and Batman. Bruce now also has the same voice as Batman, which had me worried since I was unsure of how blurred the lines would be between the two since I haven't seen this season since 2014 prior to making the video. With that tangent done, the point I'm trying to make is that Bruce is telling Gordon about the crime with the dinosaur and the following happens.
And there it was, right on my TV, Mr. Freeze and that lizard.
Dinosaur.
Whatever. Doesn't make any sense.
It's something really small, but it really stands out as Bruce plays dumb here. The same thing happens way later in the season in the episode Critters.
Quick thinking, Wayne.
Actually, I was trying to escape through the window.
Because of these examples, I'm definitely sure this was an intentional detail. Now I can say I like both sides of Bruce's public persona that we have in the DCAU, but I actually do prefer the idea that Bruce just acts dumb since that's what people think of him in the public. It makes for a more believable cover. which once again proves my idea that the Christopher Nolan Batman and the Bruce Timm Batman, that's this one by the way, are very comparable. Anyway, Freeze raids this party, ruining the painter's passion project. Batman of course arrives on the scene to fight with Freeze and... Oh my god! You saw that, right? Batman just hit this hench girl's freeze gun so she would get shot by it as Freeze makes his escape. If you remember, the exact same thing happened in Heart of Ice where Freeze shot one of his own henchmen by accident and left him behind, with Batman forgetting about Freeze and bringing the poor guy back to the Batcave to save his life before the hypothermia kicks in. Not only did Batman cause this woman to have a frozen leg, but he immediately chased after Freeze! Now I'm sure Gordon can take care of her, but Batman doesn't even give a second thought. I'm not complaining, mind you, I'm simply observing. I find this scene to be fascinating, and trust me, I am going somewhere with this. Since Robin's out of the loop in regards to Freeze, Batman and Batgirl give him the rundown of the Freeze story, including the fact that Freeze, following the events of Sub-Zero, had never gone to see his wife. In case you forgot, Batman managed to rescue Nora but failed to save Freeze, and as Bruce, he used his resources to save Nora since Bruce is the true man of the people, unlike Ferris Boyle, the man that Victor did go to prior to Heart of Ice. After a long wait, Nora married her doctor and moved from Gotham, which is a real heartbreaker if I've ever seen one, since Freeze has done nothing but try to find a cure for her. But this is the outcome. Sure, he never did the most legal things, but still. The love he had for Nora was unmatched. I'm curious to find out why this is, since I had written in my notes to mention this fact as a flaw, but the episode is still young. Let's give it some time. Freeze is then seen being worked on by the scientist that he's holding hostage, to which he then decides his next target.
As my father once told me, those who have the most must give the most.
Those who have the most also have the most to lose, Mr. Wayne.
I don't really know why he's going after Wayne, since again, the ending of Sub-Zero showed that Freeze knew that Bruce, and by extension Batman, had saved Nora. I'm not taking off points just yet, but I am intrigued. The next scene adds to Tim's character quite a bit, since it again separates him from Dick Grayson as a kid. The subject matter being schoolwork. To be fair, we saw Grayson in college, and not whatever grade Drake is in, but we saw the attitude of Grayson as a kid, and I'm going to guess that he wasn't like this.
You don't know the first thing about the American justice system, do you?
I know it's bogus.
And how did you come to that well-thought-out conclusion?
Watching you. You don't exactly follow the rules of due process.
How did you do on your math test?
Now that Freeze has raided Wayne Manor, we get a brief, albeit not very interesting fight scene between Freeze, his crew, against Bruce Timm and Batgirl, with the added stakes of having Alfred be a casualty of the battle. But luckily he's gonna be okay with Tim being left in charge as Batman and Batgirl track down Freeze. I guess Batman always keeps a handy pair of explosives to open locked doors with.
Hey, Freeze! Look who dropped in.
I was hoping to see you again.
And what the? The decision to make Freeze a robot has been met with some really huge backlash. Going into this episode, I agreed with that. However, having seen it again, I can't say this was a bad thing. Freeze's story has always been tragic, that's the point, with a bittersweet ending in both Heart of Ice and Deep Freeze. Sub-Zero gave Freeze a semi-happy ending, but the problem was how Freeze didn't contribute much to that happy ending, and there wasn't a single lesson learned by any character, hence why that movie is as weak as it is. I think this episode takes that happy ending and gives it a tragic twist. Freeze, now happy his wife is finally safe, is starting to have a deteriorating body, and by the time he got these doctors, it was just too late for him. This was before Nora was fully revived, I might add, so he would have returned to her a robot. Now that she's moved on, his whole plan is just to take the happiness away from everyone else who dedicated their lives to a cause like him. Now the plan is to freeze over the whole city. A bit cliche, but what else does he have to do at this point other than take everyone with him? The result is a pretty bloody battle between Batman and Freeze, literally, since we see blood, once again a product of the lessened sensors, and then the episode ends in a similar vein to The Dark Knight Rises as Batman gets the ship into the water and drops the bomb in it alongside Freeze, which is a sad ending for the man, but like I said, there's still one episode left for Freeze and Batman Beyond's Meltdown. And that was Cold Comfort, yet another top-notch episode. There isn't too much to say about it overall, though. I enjoyed the action, the storytelling, and Freeze is still one of my favorite BTAS villains, so without further ado, let us move on. Double Talk. In the last season, we were introduced to Scarface and the ventriloquist Arnold Wesker, and now it's his turn to get the redemption gone wrong storyline that I discussed in depth last time, only with a twist at the end that I'll get into later. Arnold has been declared sane and Bruce Wayne gets him a job at his company, but now the crew that worked for Scarface wants to get the gang back together, resulting in a great fight scene between Batman and the Rhino, with the hilarious detail that the other guy keeps trying to get Batman from behind.
Wesker's off limits. Got it?
As the story goes on, Wesker keeps getting strange mail and phone calls from someone who sounds like Scarface, with Batman giving chase to this strange fake Scarface, which should be a red flag to anyone since we all know that Scarface can't operate without Wesker, and if he could, he wouldn't need him, so something is up. Unfortunately, Wesker rejoins the gang, but I must say the scene with Batman moving about in this hallway looks absolutely horrendous. Like someone just took the walk cycle and dragged it across the screen in Vegas. Or Movie Maker, whatever the hell they used. Anyway, Batman and Batgirl get a lead on the heist Scarface and company are going to be pulling, this being Wayne Tower, with a brief scene of Batman and Batgirl trying to escape the money vault before it explodes, leading to the climax as Scarface tries to kill his own men for going after Wesker too early. Batgirl comes to their rescue, with Batman asking Wesker to finally do the right thing.
He's the puppet, not you.
Don't listen to him, dummy! He's playing you like a cheap fiddle! Do him already! I'm sorry. Come on, what are you waiting for? For once in your life, do something right. Yes. That's it, dummy! When I get my hands on...
Ending the episode with Wesker at peace, with Bruce even giving him his job back. Very surprising for this season's Bruce, if I do say so myself. But the best part is how Wesker's life is on the right track. This is the inverse of how the Season 3 stories worked. There, the villain was pulled back to crime and stayed that way, but Wesker didn't want to come back, and once he overcomes Scarface, he doesn't. This is also his final appearance. In this dimension anyway. And that was Double Talk, a great albeit smaller story, but after 2 big episodes, I'm glad we got a smaller story to take a deep breath. Since now we have 2 big episodes coming up, starting with episode 5, You Scratch My Back. So the mystery of Robin was resolved just a few episodes ago in Sins of the Father, and at the end, Dick Grayson returned with the line, "Nobody can be a boy wonder forever." A funny line to end an episode on, but the characters all look surprised to see him. So clearly he's been gone a long time. Now he's in Gotham with his new persona, Nightwing. There are a few other details to pick up on though.
What are you doing here?
Pre-dawn, the dockyards. Where else would a person in a mask be?
This is my gig. If I needed you, I'd have called.
Nightwing is really annoyed here with the presence of Batman and Batgirl. As you may remember, Dick and Barbara were dating in Season 3 in Sub-Zero, but now the dynamic is far more antagonistic. So this clues you into the fact that something happened that turned the BTAS setup we all know and love on its head. We just need to keep watching the season in order to find out what the answer to that is. In combat, Dick Grayson as Robin was basically just like Batman, with the difference being that Batman was obviously stronger and better at it than Robin, but he can still hold his own in many instances. This scene is Dick's debut as Nightwing, so let us just see how much he's learned. The answer is quite a bit. While I'm at it, the decision to give him long hair has been met with some criticism since it feels very 90s. However, this season takes place in 1999, so I'm not very surprised about that. Beyond that though, I actually feel like the long hair suits Nightwing in the same way the spiky hair suits Robin. I also love the simplicity of the costume, the all black with the blue bird in the center. I think it's very memorable to say the least. Also, thanks to this, we get an amazing moment when Nightwing is chasing a guy down and they pass by Batman.
He's all yours.
At the end of the scene, Catwoman helps Nightwing, with this resulting in Barbara and Dick arguing over Catwoman.
She didn't do anything except help.
Her kind of help you can do without.
Yeah, honey, that's all fine and good, but I like how not even 6 episodes ago, the shoe was on the other foot where Batgirl trusted Catwoman for absolutely no reason and was betrayed in the end, to the dismay of Robin. Anyway, Nightwing wants to go solo, and then we get to hear his theme one more time. I was going to say it's a variation of the Adventures of Batman and Robin theme that I gushed about in Season 3, but it's definitely not the same composition, but I can't put my finger on why it sounds familiar. Oh, furthermore, you might be asking how a Nightwing that doesn't work with Bruce can afford these tunnels under his place, and I do have an answer for that. With the Flying Graysons being as successful as they were, I can imagine that their will was quite the large sum, a fact that a later episode will confirm. I'm betting he always had this kind of money, but never needed to spend any of it for years since his adopted father was Bruce Wayne. And there you have it, with the next few scenes being dedicated to the partnership between Nightwing and Catwoman. There are a few red flags here as well. Catwoman is talking about having been redeemed, but I've said it a million times, she had gotten parole based on the fact that she would never be Catwoman again, so that's obviously off. And Dick as Robin never really liked her that much anyway, so the partnership is odd. You never really know what side she's on, like this next part where she disappears when the villain walks in. But she actually does save him, and then we get to see more of Nightwing's solo hand-to-hand skills. Of course, Batman isn't pleased with the combo, and I can talk more about this scene from Batman's perspective in a few episodes from now. But for right now, this scene is really predictable since you know that Batman's going to be mad at the team up and he's going to follow them around only for Nightwing to get betrayed in the end. Which all happens, by the way. But right when I was about to take points off for the corny setup, this happens.
You alright?
Just brokenhearted. She led us right to the Emerald, just like you said.
You set me up.
Afraid so.
This is the reason I pointed out the red flags earlier. This setup just doesn't make any sense, giving the audience a reason to be skeptical, thus making the reveal all the more satisfying. So it shows that Nightwing is willing to work with Batman to get the job done despite his distaste for the man. All that's left is the fight with the guy with the hook, and it doesn't really matter what his name is. This fight is surprisingly bloody, with a great interaction between him and Batman.
The great Batman has met his match, no?
No.
After this is a chase scene between Nightwing and Catwoman, and I don't know how Nightwing can use those wings to go up and down, but I'll let that slide. With Selina's capture, the episode ends. And if it wasn't clear already, You Scratch My Back is another superb episode to add to the list for this season with a lot of details to analyze and plenty of surprising moments to keep you guessing throughout. In addition to setting up the mystery behind why Nightwing quit being Robin and how Batgirl came to be the primary sidekick, following the unknown event. Moving on to the final episode of Disc 1, Never Fear. The title says all, but this houses the big appearance for the Scarecrow this season. I don't think he's had a single starring role since Dreams in Darkness from Season 1. He made cameos and guest appearances in previous episodes, but in terms of major screen time, he had 3 Season 1 episodes, Nothing to Fear, Fear of Victory, and Dreams in Darkness. I liked him in Season 1, especially when we got the design change from the sock puppet look in Nothing to Fear, but I can talk more about him later in this episode. The intro shows a fat guy scaling the rooftops, with Batman and Robin having to find an inventive way to stop him from killing the crowd below. The method being that Batman will stand on one roof, Robin on the other one across the street, as they shoot their grappling hooks as the building the other is standing on to make a smooth landing for the debris. I had praised a similar moment back in The Worry Men, so I'm happy to do so here as well. The fat guy evidently has no fear and will do whatever he wants. You can probably predict what's up next. The Scarecrow's up to his old tricks, only difference being that the toxin is an inverse of the fear toxin. The former stops people in their tracks as they see their greatest fear, but the latter takes away fear and shows how people act without it. Both of these are very interesting examinations on the human condition. His face is shown in shadow, but damn, he's got a full cloak, white skin, and a walking staff, and oh my god, he literally wears a noose around his neck. This is quite the design, if I do say so myself. Of all character changes, this one is considered the best and the most positive change, and this has been said for good reason. The Scarecrow was scary in concept, but never really came off that way in BTAS, until now. I just wish we got more moments with him in this design. I think his earlier appearances would have been brought up because of it. He has been recast as well, with the current voice being provided by Jeffrey Combs, and he just packs so much dread to his performance, and I can't get enough of it.
Fear is power.
Bruce fails to find and steal the gas from Scarecrow and is captured, getting hit with the no fear gas. Think about this. What was the thing that always held Batman back? It was his never-ending fear that he would cross the line and kill one of his enemies. Now he has none. The Scarecrow obviously thought that Bruce was dead after he goes down with the alligators and the blood came up, but no, Bruce killed those alligators. I'm going to guess we have quite the episode in our hands here. Batman is now out for Scarecrow and is being far less careful than usual, telling Robin that despite being gassed, he can handle it. Batman and Robin were set up to find the gas here, but Batman has no fear. Believe it or not, but that shot right there was the thing that told me that the revamped art style helped more than it hindered. I showed footage of it back in season 1, but I didn't talk about it in depth. The proof of concept for BTAS was on the first disc of season 1, and they showed it to Warner Brothers when being tasked to make a gritty Batman cartoon. The animation was a lot different than the final product though, with shots you'd never see in BTAS. Did you see that? We just saw that shot in season 4, only now it looks even better. The animators are finally able to do things on the show that they weren't able to do before. As I've said, season 3 was a big step up in this category, but nothing on this level. This brings us to a typical Batman interrogation, which we have seen numerous times in the show, but this time there's the added no fear twist.
I can't! You'll kill me!
Death is death. Does it matter who administers it?
He's gonna fill the tunnels with it!
Just in time for rush hour.
Help me! Please!
I hope it's clear that this guy was about to die if Robin didn't save him. If I was Robin at this point, I'd be terrified. But this Robin's not stopping there. Good on this kid for doing that, by the way. I mean, really, here is Robin's father figure going completely out of control, and he can either watch or take action and try to stop Scarecrow before Batman crosses the line he can't uncross. This is followed by Batman acting really shady in an attempt to be untied. Look at how his face is covered in shadow as Robin walks towards him. It really is imagery that leaves an impact.
You're not getting anything from anyone, except this.
Get him off me!
Taking a closer look at the animation following the capture of Robin, Batman's fighting style is best shown in this very scene. I get that I've hammered in the intensity at this point, however, he's literally tossing people out of the window on a moving train. It makes for a very cool visual spectacle, however, it's really interesting just to see what Batman's capable of.
Fool! You'll get us killed!
You're not trying to scare me, are you?
You can't!
Watch me.
I don't like how quickly the antidote takes effect, however the writers did need some way for the story to end with Batman back to normal, and I don't have too many objections to this because of the fact that it isn't contrived. Scarecrow was going to sell this antidote at a price or else he was flooding the city with no fear gas. It's just that for my liking it was a bit too quick to make Batman revert. With that said, the episode ends with Crane's plot foiled as Batman and Robin see the sunrise.
Last night when I tied you up, I didn't mean...
Don't apologize. You were right.
Yeah, but it was kind of scary.
A little fear's a good thing.
And that was Never Fear. Yet another tremendous episode. The stakes were high, the plot kept you on the edge of your seat with how you never knew how far Batman was willing to go, with the great choice being to make this an episode with Batman and Robin, since we get to see the intensity of Batman through Robin's eyes. And with the debut of a new Scarecrow, I'm having a hard time thinking of something I didn't enjoy in this episode. A lot of praise needs to go to Kevin Conroy's performance here. He shows incredible range as he sounds cold and lifeless as Batman without his fears holding him back. With Matthew Valencia also doing a great job showing how scary Batman's actions are from Robin's perspective. Another thing I love in this episode is the imagery that I've talked about, such as Batman's face being in the shadows, the blood of the alligators rising to the top of the water, and the shots of the Scarecrow. It just creates a very dark atmosphere. And that's it for Disc 1 of BTAS Volume 4. Like I said, this season has 24 episodes split amongst 4 discs, 6 episodes each. So far, this season has been a home run. I know that I said the same thing in my review of Season 3, but the bar has been raised even higher. There hasn't been a single episode so far that I didn't like, with plenty of interesting things to talk about in each and every single one. We still have 18 episodes to go, but the fact that the video has gone on this long should be a sign of how good these episodes have been. So that ends part 1 of my review of the new Batman Adventures. So, we've talked about the first 6 episodes, like I said. Going forward, we're going to have 4 parts of this review in total. Each will cover 6 episodes. So, for next week, you can find out, will Season 4 continue this high standard? We're going to find out the first episode of Disc 2, and Episode 7, Joker's Millions. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week.